Welcome kapatid to our series on how to answer law school and bar problems. Today we are taking a look at a problem from the 2022 bar exam. I'll be showing you precisely how to answer a problem, how to be responsive to a problem, and how you can also arrive at an elegant and precise answer all on your own. All of this and more coming right up. Hi, my name is Lex and welcome to Lex in Motion. In this channel, I'll be helping you build your competence, confidence, and capability in law school. Start today by hitting the subscribe button below. New episodes are posted every Friday. Without further ado, let us now begin with a problem from the 2022 bar examination. I'll be showing it on your screen right now. The first step in answering every problem is to take a deep breath. Find a way to calm yourself down. Don't look at the problem, don't look at your screen. Ipikit mo ang iyong mga mata kapatid at huminga ka lang muna ng malalim. The second step is to take another deep breath. As you exhale, know and understand that however way you're going to answer this next problem really is not going to matter. Tuldok lang ito kapatid. It is a dot, a speck, minutiae in the great grand story of your law school journey. And as you exhale, envision yourself passing your exam, passing the bar exam, taking the oath and what you'll be wearing on your roll signing. Now, you are ready to look at the problem. The third step is to read the last sentence, then the second to the last sentence, and then the two sentences together. If what you see at the end of the problem are phrases like explain briefly or discuss fully, feel free to include these with the last sentence. We do this, kapatid, in order for us to zero in on the problem. We can only be responsive if we know exactly what is being asked. We skip ahead to the last sentence because this is where the question is usually found. Remember, we can only be responsive if we know exactly what is being asked. Let's look at the last sentence of the problem. Is Sisa's contention tenable? Explain briefly. Let's read the second to the last sentence of the problem for more clues. During the trial, Sisa insisted that she can only be held liable for attempted parricide because she voluntarily desisted when she threw down the knife. The next step is for us to identify the rule, concept, provision, or doctrine that is being asked in the problem. The master key to being hyper-responsive is by identifying the exact rule, provision, concept, or doctrine upon which the examiner has built the problem. If we can reverse engineer how the problem was drafted in the first place, then it gives us the fighting chance to give the precise answer that the examiner is looking for. Dito sa problem na ito kapatid, ano kaya ang sinusubukan sa atin ng ating examiner? What is the rule, concept, provision, or doctrine that is being tested in this problem? If what is being tested is still unclear to you based only on the last two sentences, then feel free to come back to this after the next step. Here the examiner is asking us to determine whether or not the argument of Sisa is tenable. Her argument is that she can only be held liable for attempted parricide because there was voluntary desistance. The next step now, kapatid, is for us to read the problem from start to finish. We will look for bits and pieces, anything really, that will help us answer the question. We will go over the problem line by line and look for clues that might help us give to the examiner the answer he or she wants. If you see an actor, mark it. If you see the actor's action, mark it. If you think something might be relevant, then mark it. All others we can safely ignore as noise. I hope I'm still making sense so far. Here, what is being tested is our understanding of the stages of execution under Article 6 of the Revised Penal Code. Here, Sisa is telling the court that yes, she committed the crime, but she only committed the attempted stage of the crime. She anchors her argument on spontaneous desistance, and thus, this should trigger in your head the stages of execution laid down under Article 6 of the Revised Penal Code. Let's begin reading the problem from start to finish. A police officer responded to a disturbance call at around 1:30 p.m. in an apartment in Quezon City. Upon his arrival, the police officer encountered Sisa stabbing her 1-year-old child with a kitchen knife. The police officer grabbed Sisa and the latter threw the knife on the floor. Sisa was immediately taken into custody. Despite suffering multiple stab wounds on her back, the child survived. During the trial, Sisa insisted that she can only be held liable for attempted parricide because she voluntarily desisted when she threw down the knife. In the first line of the problem, the examiner tells us about a police officer, the first responder at 1:30 p.m. in an apartment in Quezon City. This is not relevant to me because it does not add or take away from the merits of Sisa's argument. Next, the examiner tells us that the police officer, actor, and his or her action was encountering Sisa, who was then stabbing her year-old child. The police officer grabbed Sisa and then Sisa threw the knife. This is relevant to me because it tells us where we are in the crime of parricide. Next, the examiner tells us that Sisa was arrested. Not relevant, kapatid. What might be relevant here is that the child suffered multiple stab wounds but the child survived. This is relevant to me because this is where the examiner gives us the result of the stabbing. If the child had died, then we must completely forget about the attempted or frustrated stage. Finally, the examiner tells us that Sisa argued that she could only be held liable for attempted parricide because there was voluntary desistance on her part. Then the examiner is asking us to determine whether or not there is merit in this argument. After marking our paragraph, it should look like this. Knowing what you now know about the problem, please pause this video and type up your answers in the comment section. This is the only way for me to gauge your answers and I will try to respond as best as I can. Libre dito ang magkamali, kapatid. Hindi mo ito ikakabagsak dahil hindi mo ako professor at hindi rin kita estudyante. Huwag kang matatakot na magkakamali dito, kapatid, kung ikakatama mo naman sa iyong quiz at midterms o maging iyong bar exam. This problem is a good use of red herrings. Red herrings are bits and pieces that examiners and professors throw into a problem for us to follow and pursue. They are clues which seem very important but whose sole purpose is to detract, divert, or mislead us away from the very question of the problem. Red herrings are laid down before us by our examiners primarily to waste our time through overthinking. They are placed before us so we can chase them to their often irrelevant or illogical conclusions. Red herrings are decoys for us to address, evaluate, and in the worst cases, address and attack. Don't be fooled, kapatid. Not everything in a problem is going to be relevant to your answer. Think about it, kapatid. A crime is frustrated when the offender performs all of the acts of execution which would produce the felony but does not produce it by reason of causes independent of the will of the perpetrator. In this problem, Sisa was able to stab her baby multiple times. The act of parricide should be complete. It should be consummated, but because of the intervention of the police officer at malamang ay naisugod ang bata sa hospital, ay hindi siya namatay. Milagro na nabuhay ang baby kaya pwedeng frustrated nga ang crime. However, if you answer this way, your answer would be correct. Tama ka naman, kapatid. Pero hindi mo nasagot ang tanong. Ang tanong dito kasi ay kung may merit ba ang defense ni Sisa. What is being asked here is whether or not Sisa's argument is tenable. Her argument is that she should only be charged with attempted parricide because she voluntarily desisted. We begin our suggested answer with no, Sisa's contention is untenable because she had already executed all of the acts which would have produced the crime of parricide. As I've mentioned in our digital workbook 8, 101 practice problems for lost law students and bar takers, every answer you write must be treated as if it were a miniature pleading. Always begin by stating your short answer to the problem and then your position. Make it easy for the examiner to grade your work. Next, we need to write our legal basis. The law does not require that you cite the entire provision of the law. All that matters is you write the most relevant portions of the law. Article 6 of the Revised Penal Code provides that there is an attempt when the offender commences the commission of a felony directly by overt acts and does not perform all of the acts of execution which should produce the felony by reason of some cause or accident other than his own spontaneous desistance. Notice, kapatid, that I have used the precise language of the law. The law demands precision in everything we do. However, I have taken the liberty of not writing the entirety of the provision. Doon lang tayo sa relevant, mahalaga, at magagamit natin sa susunod na paragraph. Our next line is our most important paragraph, our arguments. This is where you have to argue. Ilaban mo yan, kapatid. You cannot parrot back to the examiner the facts that he or she has written down. Wala siyang paki dito, kapatid, dahil siya ang nagsulat ng problem. Malamang sa malamang ay alam din naman niya ang kwento nito. In this next line, we have to tell the examiner why we have taken this position and why we have chosen this legal basis. We have to give back to the examiner what he or she needs. It's our chance to say, I see what you did there. We do this by arguing why we are correct. In effect, we need to sell to the examiner why we are correct. You can land at the correct answer, kapatid, pero kung hindi mo naman ito maibebenta, kung hindi mo naman makukumbinsi ang examiner na tama ka, ay wala ka na ring pinagkaiba sa ilang libong sagot na dadaan lang sa kanyang mga mata. We stand out by first being hyper-responsive to the problem, and second, through our eloquence. This begins by laying down the strongest argument. What is our strongest argument here? The strongest argument here is that Sisa's act had gone beyond the attempted stage. Lumampas na siya, kapatid. She has executed all of the overt or external acts necessary to commit the crime of parricide. Spontaneous desistance is an absolutory cause if and only if the acts executed have not yet resulted in a felony. It applies only during the attempted stage of a felony. Consider the following scenario. X pulls out a gun and points it at his live-in partner. The girlfriend now screams and cries and begs for mercy. X stops pointing the gun and puts it back in his holster. Did X commit the crime of consummated homicide? Of course not, kapatid. Tinutukan lang niya ang kanyang live-in partner. Walang binanggit sa senaryo na may namatay. Therefore, X cannot be charged with consummated homicide. Did X commit the crime of frustrated homicide? The answer, kapatid, is no. The crime is frustrated when the offender performs all of the acts of execution but the felony is not produced by reasons independent of the will of the perpetrator. Sa halimbawang ito, maaaring may frustrated homicide kung binaril ni X ang kanyang live-in partner pero hindi namatay ang live-in partner niya dahil siya pala ay si She-Hulk, or pwedeng naisugod siya agad sa hospital. Now, did X commit the crime of attempted homicide? The answer, kapatid, is still no. Here, X did not commit all of the acts necessary which could cause the crime of homicide. X did not pull the trigger. Hindi niya pinaputukan. In order for X to be convicted of attempted homicide, 3 things have to happen. Number 1, the offender must not execute all of the necessary acts. 2, the incomplete execution is due to some other cause or accident. 3, the incomplete execution is not due to X's spontaneous desistance. In this problem, X spontaneously desisted from shooting his live-in partner. Pwedeng naawa siya, nahimasmasan siya, natauhan siya, at hindi na niya binaril ang live-in partner niya. This is an example where desistance becomes an absolutory cause. This was the claim also made by Sisa in our original problem. Heto ang kanyang argumento. Bago natin sagutan si Sisa, one more point doon sa problem nung kay X. It is entirely possible that X is not criminally liable for homicide dahil labas siya sa consummated, frustrated at attempted stages. However, this same act, tinutukan niya ng baril, could result into some other crime such as grave threats or a violation of the Violence Against Women and Children Act dahil mag-live-in partner sila. I hope I am making sense so far. Now, with all of that being said, is there now merit in the argument of Sisa? Is her defense tenable? How do we say all of this in the simplest, most concise manner possible? In this problem, Sisa's contention is incorrect because she was apprehended after she had stabbed her child multiple times. There is no voluntary desistance here because she had already commenced all the overt acts which would have produced the crime of parricide. Notice kapatid that we began our suggested answer with in this problem. Masakit sa mata ang mabasa ang in the case at bar dahil wala naman tayo sa korte at ito ay isang academic exercise. Hindi mo yun ikinakatalino kapatid. Pwedeng-pwede na rin kami sa here, dahil madali lang itong dot-dotin sa iyong keyboard. I hope I'm still making sense so far. Next, you need to phrase your answer in the form of an argument. You are in law school because you are hoping that someday, one day, you will be a lawyer. At a certain point in your life, kapatid, you will be arguing for a living. Hindi ko naman sinasabi na maging palaaway ka, kapatid. Arguing means convincing your professor, your examiner, or the courts on the merits of your position. Arguing means selling your position and convincing your professor of the correctness of your answer. In your third paragraph, you need to argue. Hindi ka pwedeng umulit lang ng facts. Wala ka nang magiging kaibahan sa ilang libong booklet o answer sheet na dadaan lang sa mata ng mga examiner. Dapat kapag binasa ng professor mo ang sagot mo, masasabi niya na magiging abogada ang batang are. Finally, we have the conclusion. This is the part where most law students are awfully confused. Maraming mga hindi na lang nagsusulat ng kanilang mga conclusion dahil ayaw lang nilang ulitin ang sinabi nila sa bungad ng kanilang mga sagot. A good conclusion should wrap up your entire position, legal basis, and your arguments. It should function like a mic drop. Tipong pag nag-conclude ka na kapatid ay tapos na ang usapan. Uwian na dahil may nanalo na. If you are unsure of what to do, focus on the effects of your answer. With our conclusion, the suggested answer should look like this. No, Sisa's contention is untenable because she had already executed all of the acts which would have produced the crime of parricide. Article 6 of the Revised Penal Code provides that there is an attempt when the offender commences the commission of a felony directly by overt acts and does not perform all of the acts of execution which should produce the felony by reason of some cause or accident other than his own spontaneous desistance. In this problem, Sisa's contention is incorrect because she was apprehended after she had stabbed her child multiple times. There is no voluntary desistance here because she had already commenced all the overt acts which would have produced the crime of parricide. For these reasons, Sisa's charge cannot be downgraded to attempted parricide. The worst mistake you can make in a conclusion is to simply repeat your opening statement. This would be a waste of your examiners or professors' precious time and attention. Marami ring hindi na lang nagsusulat ng conclusion dahil ayaw na lang nilang umulit lang ng first sentence. When you don't know what to write, focus on the fruits, effects, and results. Assuming that your answer is correct. Ano kaya ngayon? Salamat kapatid at sinamahan mo ako sa ilang minuto na tayo ay nagsagot ng isang bar exam problem. I will be doing my best to respond to all of your answers in the comments and give you timely feedback. Sana at kahit papano ay may natutunan ka. The means and methods I've discussed here are all contained in our digital workbook 8, 101 practice problems for lost law students and bar takers. Here you will be tasked with answering about 105 bar problems spread out in various bar subjects. All of the answers here are broken down, explained, and discussed in much greater detail than what we have done here. You will also learn about how examiners draft their problems, where questions come from, and how to predict with a reasonable degree of accuracy the problems that might come out in your midterm and final exams. In this workbook, I've also discussed the common tactics that professors use to confuse law students and baristas. At ano ang pwedeng pangontra sa mga tactics nila? Narito rin ang mga typical na mali ng mga law students sa kanilang mga sagot at kung paano natin ito gagamutin. Follow along the journey as we help you take your answers from miserable to elegante. Grab your copy of 8, 101 practice problems for lost law students and bar takers through the links in the description box below. If you would like to see more episodes on how to answer law school exams and bar problems, please let me know by typing yes in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Like and share this video for good law school karma, and I will see you next Friday.